So James, it is results season at the moment. People will be getting those brown envelopes with their grades in. And for many, there might be some disappointment if they don't get the grades they were expecting. For some, there might be success. So how do you deal with that disappointment on that day of results day?
Well, for me, the disappointment didn't come on the day. For me, it was 8 months earlier when I did the UCAS applications. I put my 5 in, and I got 4 rejections, like 1 good offer. And so I had to really work hard. Unfortunately, by God's grace, I managed to get into the university that gave me an offer. But it's hard, isn't it, when you get a big setback? It kind of takes the wind out your sails, the breath out your lungs. And what do you do in that moment? You think, where's God in this? I was convinced that's where God wanted me to go, and now all of a sudden I've got to recalibrate all. And so when that happens, it happens in friends. It's happened in my life not just when going to university. It can happen when you're coming out of university too. You know, you've got that, you're convinced God's called you to go to, I don't know, Hawaii and just have this dream job on the beach, surf instructor. And what do you do when you don't get your visa approved and you can't go? Still salty. And what do you do? Where's God in this? And does he love it? Well, to young people, we would say, look, your identity isn't in your grades. And so if you don't get the AAA or whatever it is these days that measures your value in society, know that it's not in the A-level grades that you should have or could have got. It is in being a child of God. You're loved, bought at a price. And Jesus died on the cross for you. You're loved because you're you. And what we need in this world is you to be you. And just because maybe what you thought was the right thing for you might not be on the table anymore, God still has a plan and a purpose for you. It says in Ephesians 2 that he's prepared good works in advance for you to do. And so there is still purpose for you. God still has big plans for your life. And there are lots of people who do lots of great things and don't go to their first choice of university. In fact, in Newcastle, where we are now, we meet loads of people, and this might not have been their first choice of uni, but we are so grateful to God that they were called here. And we don't think it's by chance they're here. We do believe in the sovereignty of God, and it is by design. And they're called here for a purpose, to get plugged into the church family and to do good in the city, because in Ephesians 2 it says God has prepared good works for us to do in advance. And I always thought maybe my life was written on a blueprint in heaven, locked away in a chest, and it felt like other people had this like supernatural connection. They knew what their life plan was all about, and they were convinced, I'm going to be a primary school teacher, and then they've gone on and done it, and you think, why don't I have that clarity when it comes to my plan for my life? And then maybe you sin or something like that, or you don't get the grades and you think, I'm going off on a different path. I'm never going to get back to where God wanted me. Well, that's rubbish. God's plans are good and they will never fail. And whatever the outcome, take stock. On the day, I know this might not be the most encouraging thing, but do try and listen to this podcast again, maybe a week or two later, and let this truth settle in. God will work all things for the good of those who love him. And he'll provide another opportunity for you to do good and to play your part in the church, in the kingdom, in this world. And it can look like anything. It could look like doing a gap year. I'd never heard of gap years. Yeah. And I came to university and all these people have gone on these exotic trips or something like that, or they'd served somewhere in a local church, done a discipleship year. And they were all the more mature and the more experienced because of it. Yeah. And opportunities had opened up for them during that year.
And it might have only happened, they might have only ever gone on that gap year because they had to reconsider through that disappointment of, hang on a second, so if it's not that, what is it? And that's when you start to open your eyes and ears to listen to what God has for you, not just what you thought God had for you and what you thought, that'd be really good for me, but actually listening to what God has for you and what God wants for you as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Well, that's really helpful. Thanks, James.